Welcome to Prime Space, a Prime Coaching Academy podcast with your host, Elias Scultori. Hello, coaches, and thank you once again for being here and listening to these episodes. I so appreciate your participation, your listening ears, and your comments. I've been having some conversations with some coaches that have listened to previous episodes, and I am so appreciative of the value that you're receiving from these episodes and what I'm sharing here during these episodes. So thank you again for being here and for the impact that you are creating by listening to these podcasts. And this week, what I would love to share a little bit of my experience presenting at ICF St. Louis this past week. I presented a workshop that we at Prime Coaching Academy, we call it the Artistry of Coaching. As you know, one of the pillars of our program at Prime Coaching Academy is really this embracing both the form and the flow, both the science and the art of coaching. We want our students to really be solid in the technique, in the aspects of the science of coaching, but we also want our students to leave with an understanding of the flow, of the artistry, the humanity behind these concepts. So we have this particular workshop called the Artistry of Coaching, and I gave the presentation at ICF St. Louis. I'm going to give the same presentation again at ICF Iowa in September 2024, and then I will be in person at the ICF DC Capital Coaches Conference at the ICF Washington, D.C. area. So looking forward to meeting some of you there in person at that wonderful conference that ICF DC creates for us, usually in the fall. So anyways, what is this artistry of coaching that we're talking about? And the way I like to talk about is really coming together with the science and the art, with the form and the flow. We like to use this terminology, the form and the flow. And what is the form and the flow? The form is, in simple terms here, is the technique. It's the concept of coaching, is the core competencies, the steps of coaching, what we have identified as the structure, the framework of the coaching conversation, the skills that we as coaches need to develop. The art the flow is really the humanity behind it. So we have all of this technique. We understand all of the concepts of coaching. We understand competency number 1, 2, 3, 4, marker 3.2, 4.3. We have all of these understanding of the technique of coaching. So how do we put this in place? I believe that last week I talked about the analogy of the recipe and the cake, right? We have the recipe, but the recipe is not the cake. We need to know how to work with the recipe to create a cake. And the goal is that we understand not only how to put the flour and the milk together, but we understand the concepts behind the recipe so that we can free ourselves from the recipe, right, and create our cake. Not that we are going to forget the recipe and forget the concept of the recipe. That's foundational. But we want to understand the recipe so deeply that when we are creating the cake, we are able to really create our cake. I mentioned this in the previous episode. So that is the flow, right? The form and the flow. And it's interesting because as we move into our development as a coach, going through coach training, but even after we have our ACC, our PCC, even after we have MCC, we continue to grow. And it's interesting because as we do that reflective practice, we if we pay attention, we are going to notice that, oh, I'm leaning a little bit more towards form right now. Can I bring a little bit more flow? Can I bring a little bit more of the humanity? Oh, I'm leaning a little bit too much into the flow and kind of letting go of some parts of the form and the concepts of coaching. Can I bring this back? Right? And we go back and forth. It's a natural progression of being a human being, of being a person in growth and development, as we all are. And hopefully, and I'm going to quote my friend Jeff Nally, who is a PCC coach, and I was having this conversation about form and flow with him recently, and he said, hopefully that as we bounce back and forth in the form and the flow, we are growing, we are developing, and every time we visit these aspects, we see it through different perspectives. So that's such a beautiful image, right? This organic, moving, constantly energized practice that we apply, that we go through as coaches. It's a crucial aspect of coaching. Form alone is not enough. Technique alone is not enough. Knowing all the steps of the core competency and memorizing them and being able to articulate all of them, that alone is not enough. That alone does not make a coach. Flow, on the other hand, just having intuition, just having presence, just building a trusting environment, just connecting human to human, being vulnerable, transparent with God, that alone is not enough either. It is the masterful combination of both that really brings this process of coaching to the next level. And that's what we are aiming for. In coaching, we deal with the human being, and that is the revolutionary aspect of coaching. We are not there simply to fix a problem, to solve or resolve a particular issue. We are there to support this individual in their continued development. And it is this moment that we offer our clients to stop, reflect with intentionality, with purpose, with a framework that makes that moment even more effective. That's the revolutionary aspect of coaching. And you have to listen to the previous episode for you to get why I say that it is the revolutionary aspect of coaching. And this, as you see, applies, nowadays we have so many different labels of coaching, right? Executive coaching, leadership coaching, business coaching, personal coaching, spiritual coaching, flower coaching, plant coaching, chair coaching, whatever. So many labels. But the bottom line, regardless of the concept, regardless of the context, we are coaching the person, right? We may be working with that particular executive. We may be working in a business, in a corporate environment, but corporations are made of human beings. Right? It's funny sometimes when I hear coaches or even coaching organizations say, no, we don't do the personal coaching. We only work with companies and organizations. And I'm like, well, when you go into the company and the organizations, who do you coach? You coach the person, right? So it's important for us to keep that concept alive. To coaching, not be distracted by the stories, because it is in the human being that comes the transformational aspect. And we can come up with several processes and opportunities, but if there isn't internal transformation, it's going to be a Band-Aid that later on will need to be addressed yet again and not as effective. right? So that is the beauty of coaching. And if I love to talk about that. It's the artistry of coaching, because it's really an artistic process, and we can see parallels this with music, with art. In the presentation, I bring the development of the painter Salvador Dali, and how he, throughout his life, he was able to really apply himself to the technique, and he is technically speaking, he's flawless in his technical paintings, but at the same time develop his voice, develop the humanity, develop this message, develop his vision, and how he was able to utilize the technique to support what he was trying to convey in those particular paintings. It's so beautiful to see that. And this is what we are trying to do here in coaching as well. Technique alone is not enough. And flow alone, humanity alone, is not enough either. We can have an insightful conversation anywhere, but coaching is an intentional process, right? So the intentionality comes with that form. So here, some thoughts for you. So how do we integrate? How do we work through this balance between form and flow? And this is just a couple of thoughts for you here. Experiment. Experimentation is crucial. Don't hesitate to try. And in the trying, you're playing, you're noticing, that question didn't quite land as well as I would like it to land. So, okay, I'm going to do a little differently next time. And my session agreement wasn't as good. Somehow I felt blocked. That's why coaching supervision and working with a more experienced coach that is going to support you with supervision, with mentor coaching, skills development, and with you as a global person is so crucial for that, for us to keep mentioning that. So yes, experiment. Yes, work with a mentor coach, a coach supervisor, or an experienced coach that can really support you globally. Bring your humanity. Be vulnerable. Vulnerability is part of the core competencies. Vulnerability, transparency, authenticity. Bring that. Show up to your client 100%. Exercise self-awareness all the time, right? What is here for me to learn today? And be very current with best practices. The coaching world is developing and growing all the time. So what are the best practices right now? What is current? What is in the conversation? So be part of the community of your chapter, the community at large. What is happening here? What is the new development? What are people talking about? What are we learning together? What are the standards that we are creating? Remember, we are the ICF, right? We are the ones who set the standards. So what are the standards that we are, as a community of coaches, creating together? And the last thing that I want to give you here, a little tip: live fully. Go watch a movie, read a book, talk with a stranger, make new friends, have dinners, experiment with different foods, travel, go someplace that you've never been before, local or internationally, whatever. But be out there, do something different today. All of this enriches our humanity. And I am a firm believer that will enrich the moment that we are with our coachees as well. So those are my thoughts. And it's so hard to encapsulate, I'm noticing this, encapsulate all of these concepts in just 10 to 15 minutes. But I try my best. And of course, we're going to have the time to talk about this again some other time. I hope this is valuable to you. Please go to our YouTube channel, Prime Coaching Academy on YouTube, and subscribe. Put the thumbs up over there for our videos, podcast in Spotify or iTunes. Please subscribe as well. Always wonderful to know and that you are listening and to have you in the conversation. And I will talk to you again next week, everybody. Take good care.